On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what do we have in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, Archie and I have got an awful lot of exciting things for you in this week's episode. So many I can't really list them, but it's going to start off with a leucistic alligator, but there's lots more besides.
I really like the old credits.
Go.
So what have you been doing then recently with the kids down at the old Brixton Youth Outreach Centre? Oh, go Barry, I have been sending them up north, raising money. Oh, raising money, they're doing sort of charity stuff then. Oh, yeah, all the charity type stuff. And what they're doing and whereabouts. Oh, I have sent them to a pub in Newcastle called the Docker's Fist, and they are raising money by selling the Sunderland issue of Pink News.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortune Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. As regular viewers will know, every Wednesday evening for a quarter of an hour-ish and every Saturday afternoon for half an hour-ish, we bring you what I used to call a miscellany, but now I call a whole general mishmash. And guess what? Big thank you goes out to viewer and friend of the show, Mick Holland, who finally found out that the term whole general mishmash comes from Douglas Adams's novel So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. I've got all of Douglas Adams's novels, but I couldn't for the life of me remember which one that phrase came from, and now Mick, you have sorted it for me. Thank you very much indeed. So here is our weekly whole general mishmash of hard science, weird shit and surreality. What's surreality? Well, have a look at this. The other day, Steve Baxter, who I'm sure you will all remember, is not just an old friend of the show, but has sent us quite a few interesting stories over the last few months, and was the artist responsible for the cover of the latest issue of Animals and Men. He sent me this remarkable news story about a whale with scoliosis. It's a fin whale, which is the second largest species of whale after the blue whale, and it would appear that this was a congenital defect because, to my mind anyway, the amount of trauma that would have been necessary if it had been damaged by being collided with a ship or something to enough trauma to do that amount of damage would probably have killed it. But it's a fascinating story. I've never heard anything like it. Have you, Rich?
No, I've never heard of a whale with a crooked spine like that. I'm amazed it can survive and function, and it must be congenital. It must have been born like that, because I don't think it would have survived as an adult getting an injury like that. Like you say, if it was struck by a boat or attacked by a pod of killer whales, I don't think it would have lived. So it seems to be functioning. Its size is that of an average adult, so it seems to be functioning as a normal whale would, even with the spinal deformity.
It does look very thin though, although the fin whales are remarkably long and thin, rather than being as bulky as many other whale species. It looks like it's full size, it looks like it's fully grown, although they have been measured at over 80 feet and can live to over 100 years. But this one looks like it's physically mature, which means if it's a female, it's going to be between at least 6 to 12 years old, possibly much older. What do you think its chances are of survival?
Well, if it's survived this long, I think its chances of survival are pretty good. Somebody once compared fin whales and blue whales to greyhounds and St Bernards.
Yeah, I can see that. This was actually filmed off the coast of Spain, by the way, and there was another interesting story from, I believe, Canada a few years ago, where a humpback whale with a spinal injury, probably this one had collided with a boat, swam for thousands of miles despite the fact that she couldn't use her tail, so she was just propelling herself along with her flippers.
Darren would be the person to ask about whale spine deformities.
Well, Darren is coming down to visit me soon, so when he comes down I shall ask him, because I always have a list of things to ask Darren, because he's a great favourite on the show when we have him.
Now, when I'm not hunting monsters or writing books or seducing beautiful women, I work for the NHS at the Royal Devon and Exeter Hospital, which is where I make my day-to-day money. And when I was on my rounds the other day, I noticed that there were little plastic packages like these left all over the place, in baby changing rooms and on seats and all over the hospital. There were dozens and dozens of them, and they contained little crocheted bees and little crocheted flowers and a note with the following legend on it: "Dawlish random felts of crochet kindness, a little smile from me to you. Please post a photo if you can so I know it's been found." So I took one of these little crocheted bees home and named it Barnaby. I think the whole idea is bee-mendous. And if they'd have left a phone number, I'd have given them a buzz.
Bzzz. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the other day Miss Maxine sent me another very interesting picture. Look at this. I've seen pictures of albino alligators and crocodiles before, but I've never seen a leucistic one, and this one is leucistic. Look, it's got blue eyes and it's got the dark coloured patches on it. It's a fantastic looking creature, and I think I'd like to know more about it. Does anyone know where it was found, how it was found, or where the pictures were taken? Please let me know if you do. And that was that, except it wasn't. Because I sent a copy of that picture to a mate of mine just because I thought it was a very striking looking animal and he'd be interested in seeing it. And he wrote back saying, "Snowball, the leucistic alligator." Wasn't that the animal that was stolen under very mysterious circumstances when somebody torched a reptile sanctuary in Florida about 10 years ago? So I had a look, and I did some digging, and I found first of all it wasn't 10 years ago, it was 5 years ago, and it was Florida. And here is the original story about the break-in, and here is a picture of the owner of the sanctuary, Robbie Casey, holding a snowball. Except it's not Snowball. Except, no, of course it's Snowball, but it's not the same Snowball as in the original picture that I was sent by Miss Maxine. Look, they have completely different markings. And by the way, while talking about different markings, you'll notice that I'm now wearing a t-shirt emblazoned with an Om symbol, rather than my favourite brown jumper which dear sweet Miss Judy darned for me the other day. That's because it's mildly warmer today, and today is actually a day after when I started working on the Snowball story. So, that brings you up to date. Let's look at the details of the Snowball burglary. This is a story from Newsweek on the 26th of June 2018. 26th of June is actually my brother's birthday. However, I digress, and by the way, talking of digressing, you can see another lapse in continuity, because not only am I wearing a different shirt than I was at the beginning of the show, but I now have a dog sat on my lap. But let's have a look at what Newsweek has to say. Oh, by the way, it's been prey-seed and buggered around a bit by yours truly. It tells how police in Florida launched an investigation after a rare white alligator was believed to have been stolen following a suspected arson attack which killed 43 other reptiles. The Sumter County Sheriff's Office were called to a fire at a sanctuary in Bushnell run by Swamp Brothers reality TV show stars Stephen and Robbie Casey on June the 22nd. Now, just a little bit here about the TV show. I'd never heard of it, and certainly never watched it. But for those of you who, like me, are ignorant of the subject, apparently brothers Robbie and Stephen Casey are related in name only. Robbie, a former personal assistant to the rock band Poison. God, they were terrible. I really disliked that band. Loves music and wildlife. Stephen is a college graduate who spent 14 years as a bartender in New York. But together they successfully operate a unique family business, working with wild and dangerous animals at Glades Herb Farm in Florida, the state's largest reptile sanctuary and exotic reptile dealership. Dealership? That makes it sound like it's got some sort of a license from the people who make reptiles to sell them, because a dealership, you have a Ford dealership and a Toyota dealership and a Daimler dealership, but an exotic reptile dealership? Does that mean, as all life was created by the Lord, that Stephen and Robbie Casey have got a personal contract from God Almighty to be able to sell his creations at a profit from somewhere in Florida? I don't know about this. The show Swamp Brothers follows the Caseys as they track down and capture an assortment of creatures, from pythons and gators to wildcats and bears, and return them to a safe environment. But now, back to Newsweek. During a subsequent search of the burned building, officials found that a leucistic alligator named Snowball was missing and believed stolen. All of the other 43 animals held inside the facility, including alligators and crocodiles, died due to the fire. Police believe that whoever it was who took the rare leucistic alligator may have set fire to the building in an attempt to cover their tracks. How absolutely horrible. According to the Central Florida theme park at Gatorland, there are only 12 leucistic alligators in the world today, and I believe it was them who gave a price estimate for $100,000 as being the worth back in 2018 of a leucistic alligator like Snowball. But where is Snowball? What happened to Snowball? Let's have a bit more of a look. Well, it seems that Robbie Casey and one of his business partners were sentenced to a year in prison for illegal wildlife trading back in 2015. I'm not going to stand in judgment over them because I don't know the details. And I know people who have been prosecuted and in one case sent to prison for things that they just didn't do. And that was under the British legal system. And forgive me if I am a little bit, what's the word, a little bit xenophobic here, but I trust the American legal system even less than I do the British one. The reptile dealership, and I hate that term, it's an absolutely horrible term, appears to have closed down for a while but now be open again under the management of the guy who went to prison with Robbie Casey. And the reviews of it on the internet are both badly spelt and generally negative. The latest news is that about a year ago, a YouTube channel called Get Swamped, which appears to show and showcase the day-to-day activities of some, if not all, of the guys involved in the story so far, showed a video called The Hunt for Snowball A Leucistic Alligator Continues. About a year ago, the team were approached by a lady who had seen an alligator in the wild that appeared to be Snowball. And so the team went off to try and catch it. They didn't see it, but the photograph that the witness showed them showed a alligator that could possibly have been Snowball living in the wild 5 years on, and appeared to have markings which are consistent with the way Snowball's markings may have changed over the last 5 years. I had a brief look at the stuff on their site, and it seems that these guys, whilst unconventional and whilst breaking the rules once in a while, are on the side of the angels. Does that remind you of anybody? Because the CFZ have not always done things by the book and not always covered our tracks as well as we would like to have done. So at the moment the jury is still out. Hopefully Snowball will eventually be recovered. Hopefully these guys are as positive as it looks like. And I am going to get my lady in Florida, that's Katie for the you guys who don't know, I'm going to get her to check these guys out and see what's happening. But we still haven't found the Snowball in the pictures which Miss Maxine sent me, which kick-started this whole saga. So, please keep your eyes open. Tell me, is this Snowball that's a pet? Is it a Snowball that's in captivity as a exhibit in a menagerie of some sort? Or is it possibly even a very tame wild one? This, considering the framing of the photograph, seems very unlikely, but here at the Centre for Fortean Zoology we always like to keep our options open. And I have got totally and utterly obsessed with this story of Snowball. So let's wait and see what happens next.
Hello, I'm Richard Muirhead of the Centre for Fortean Zoology UK. I'm a qualified librarian and I'm using my memory from library school to catalogue, or rather classify, the CFZ's cryptozoology and other subject books. I'm using coloured sticky labels or spots and putting them on the spine of the book. For example, a single blue dot is Bigfoot and similar creatures. 2 orange dots are butterflies. On this shelf, 2 green dots is straight natural history. A single green dot are mystery cats. A single yellow spot are lake and sea monsters. A single orange dot are hauntings and ghosts. UFOs are 2 red dots. Straight
shot of that. There we go. Yep.
Straight cryptozoology is 1 red dot. And general Forteana are 2 yellow dots, as you can see. So I'm here till Tuesday, February the 28th. I won't get it all done. When I come back down in the summer, I'll be able to make further progress. That's all, folks.
Is there going to be a chart somewhere on the wall explaining the key to the colours then, I suppose?
Yes, there will be a chart based on my provisional chart here, which I created earlier today.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And this will go on the door,
Alrighty.
typed out neatly.
Okay, can I expect I'll be the one who prints it out in the end?
I guess so, yeah.
Alright, thanks.
Okay.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell, or else you won't be told when the next show's going to be.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is about it for this episode. I want to say a big thank you to you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I rather like these ones which are portmanteau episodes with all sorts of odds and sods crammed together disparately just because we can, really. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who was involved in this, particularly my producer Louis and Graham Inglis, who, by the way, was the cameraman in the slot with Richard Muirhead in the library, and also to my guests, who were Richard Freeman, Richard Muirhead, Maxine, who wasn't actually a guest, but she told me all about the biggest story, which was the Alligator, and Steve Baxter, who again wasn't an actual guest, but he sent me down the rabbit hole of what happens with whales with deformed backs, which is something I'd never thought of before. But it's interesting, and I'm very glad that they did send me these things. Please continue to send me stories, all of you, and I will, whenever possible, use them in the show and follow them up and credit you. So thank you so much, my dears. I'm going to be back on Wednesday, and I can tell you what's happening on Wednesday. We have a book review. What's the book? Well, you're going to have to just wait and see. And I'm going to be back next Saturday. What's going to be the next Saturday's show? I haven't a clue. I have no idea whatsoever, but we'll think of something. So, now, if you're watching, Mr. McCrinnan, are you there? Are you ready? Are you front and centre? Because if you are all going to be there on Wednesday and again on Saturday, wait for it, Mr. McCrinnan. I'll be seeing you.